The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Looks like just about everybody is here. So this is my first time doing a webinar. So please be patient with me. I think everybody is on mute. And that I don't know how to fix. But I think I can see here if people ask questions or they raise their hand or what have you. So if you have a question, please use the buttons, I guess, that are on here. And oh, yeah, Matt, you did test it, so thank you. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you do have a question, put your hand up or let me know. Oh, good. Okay. Thank you, Matt. And I'd like to welcome everybody. Today we're going to try and cover how to effectively use your CEF and kick off the school year. And cover just some key items on the CEF process and what we're going to do. So I'm moving on to the agenda. And there we go. So what I want to cover today is what is a Chapter Endowment Fund, an overview of the fundable items from your Chapter Endowment Fund. Also then get into some of the more tactical issues, how to apply and the reimbursement form. It's all online. Remind everybody some important dates and then also share with everybody what their CEF balances are and their draws. So the first thing that I want to cover are some overview of fundable items that are available to everybody. And what I want to draw your attention to would be the application, the online application, which I'll give you the website here shortly. But it provides some very good general guidelines. You'll when you click on the link, you'll get a basic overview and some of the chapter endowment funds that exist. We recently had a couple, established in addition to these, so this list will be updated in the very near future. On page 2, some general guidelines. The background on CEFs, and I assume everybody can see my screen. And yes, this presentation is being recorded, and so the entire recording and presentation will be shared via the Triangle YouTube and website. So that is being shared with everybody. And also people can reference it later on. The list here, and it's not necessarily inclusive, but it talks about some of the items that we can use the funding for. And just to give you a little bit of insight into this, the IRS governs this area pretty significantly because of their feelings towards the fraternity world and foundations. So unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff that, we would love to fund, but we have to comply with IRS regulations. And since we are a charitable institution and we provide tax deductions for these gifts, they basically have to go for charitable purposes. And operations of the chapter, housing of the chapter, things like that at this point in time are not considered educational in nature or charitable for that matter. So those types of things are not fundable. Things like sofas and big screen TVs for the chapter room, new stove or refrigerator. But these funds are to be used to help basically achieve the mission of the fraternity in building better men. So anything that helps with academics and personal leadership, philanthropic efforts, those types of things are all good uses. So this list here is not completely exhaustive. I mean, we can add to this as new ideas come up, and certainly things like our brand new relationship with First Robotics would be something that would be a good thing that I should add to this list. So thinking, always think about this and think about, as you're planning your academic year, is how can these funds be invested to improve the members in the chapter? And if we really do a grassroots effort and think about this in the sense that, if we build better men, we will in turn have a better chapter. So if we're providing them the skills and the training as individuals, then they, ideally will come together and support the chapter and improve the overall chapter, whether it's your average GPA or anything else related to that matter. So this list is on here, and I've had chapters in the past send me emails: is this fundable or is that fundable? And so I'm certainly open to that, and I'll share my email address a little bit later in this presentation, so everybody has that. So moving on, the next thing that we wanted to talk about is just a little bit about this application. So when you get to the website, and we will give you the correct, this is not the website to use, so do not use that. This is just for presentation purposes. But you'll land on this Chapter Endowment Grant Application. And the key thing, before you go and do anything else, please click on the box, save your progress to resume later, and fill in the information confirming your password and clicking save. This is very important because, as you'll see later, the form number 2 to get your reimbursement is directly connected to this. Also, if you start the process and you need to gather more information or you have to go to class, of course, you don't want to have to redo all your hard work. So please make sure that you're always saving your information to resume later. Pages 1 and 2 are more instructions and information, some of which I'll cover a little bit later, primarily the dates, and then also the discussion on the grant agreement. Again, per IRS regulations, we have to have proof that the funds were used correctly, and that should anything happen, should we reimburse you for a computer, and we find out that the computer went home with somebody and wasn't being used by the chapter in essence will be responsible for repaying that. So we have to make sure that the funds are used as they're granted, and that they're actually put into use. So that's forms pages 1 and 2. Page 3 begins the actual application. You're going to see up here basic chapter information, the application of your date. You'll be able to drop down for your chapter. When you drop down for your chapter, it will default to your options. So, for example, Pittsburgh has 2 funds. Pittsburgh. You'll see that you have the option to use the Melissa and John Gargani Fund or the Pitt Chapter Endowment Fund. Armor, you'll have another fund added to your list, as well as a couple other chapters that have 2 separate endowment funds. So it automatically defaults there. Grant coordinator name, this is the person that I will be contacting if I have any problems, and the person is going to be responsible for this grant application. So it's important that that person be knowledgeable of this information and understand what the program is, and be able to and be held accountable if there's something that goes wrong. So it's important that that person responsible for this application, you can have different people in the chapter responsible for different applications. It's just my go-to person. The coordinator phone, the way I can reach out to that person, whether that's the cell phone or if they have a landline, does that exist in chapter houses? I don't know. And the direct email that it will be responded to, not your spam folder or your junk email address you give out. Chapter mailing address for the chapter. This is just for record keeping. We also like to keep track of the chapter officers. So even though there might be a duplication for the coordinator, please complete these key officers. chapter president, chapter VP, and treasurer. And then we would also, if you do know, these are not required. If you do, I would like to know who your alumni president is. In some of the chapters, coordination with the alumni group, like Marquette, that's expected. And chapter advisor, everybody should have these two positions, but if you don't, I understand that, but please complete that. So page 1, pretty simple, of the actual application. Moving on to the next page, program information. So the name of your program, I need to know how much you are requesting for the program, and then categorize it based on one of these options in the drop-down areas. If you ever have a question, something doesn't seem to fit, please let me know, and we can discuss that. How many attendees or participants? So if this is a chapter study room improvement and you're buying a new computer or you're buying Wi-Fi, basically the number of people within the chapter that would be utilizing that service or that area. The program date is the date that you'll be attending the program or implementing the new study room upgrade or what have you. And then the next 3 boxes are narratives that you have to fill in. First one is, describe the program that you'll be attending as best as you can. So if you're going to take the chapter to a high ropes course, we need a little bit of information on that. If you're attending a leadership program that is outside of Triangle Fraternity, which is completely fundable, say ASME, Mechanical Engineers, or the Civil Engineering Group, is hosting some sort of a leadership seminar, and the chapter would like to use some of their chapter endowment funds to go to that, we would need some more information on that program. What is the goals and objectives of that program? If you're installing Wi-Fi, is it so that you're trying to improve the GPA of the chapter by 2 percentage or 0.2 percentage points, or if you're trying to increase philanthropy, the program is to do something with First Robotics, and you're trying to increase chapter philanthropy, what have you. What's the impact to the chapters and the members? How is this helping? How is this, we're talking about earlier, building better men. How is this helping build better men? This is giving them the equipment to perform better in the classroom. Is it connecting them with the community? Is it engaging young people in the STEM world with First Robotics? What have you? Who is responsible for the program? So in some chapters, the person that applies for the grant is not necessarily the person that implements it. So for example, you're bringing in a speaker to talk about study skills and trying to improve the academic performance of the chapter, and your scholarship chair is going to do that, but you're the treasurer or the VP for internal affairs, and you're taking care of the application. The details of who's implementing the program. If it's an outside group, if it's the university, if it's ASCE, if it's something like that, please put those details here. And then how are you going to evaluate the success? So if you're saying that you're going to install a better grade of Wi-Fi to improve academic performance, how are you going to do that? Are you going to be rewarding the chapter for improved academics? Are you how are you evaluating those grade reports every year, every quarter or semester? Those types of things. Now, as far as all the attachments, they go down here. So up here, we ask for if there's any pertinent information, agendas, facilitators, anything like that, you can attach it right here. Please share the PDF program materials. And this does allow you, as you can see here with this link here, to add multiple documents. I do ask that they all be PDF. For archival purposes and for our ability to open the document easily. Please convert anything you are sending to us into a PDF. I would greatly appreciate that. Do not, take a picture with your phone and make it a TIFF or something like that. Please make it a PDF. You're all engineers, so I'm hoping you all have that capability. And if the program is a scholarship, you need to upload a PDF of the application and selection criteria. Let me talk specifically right now about scholarships, and this is something to consider for your chapter, whether it's to reward academic performance. So you're going to give out a semester highest GPA scholarship, or you're going to do a recruitment scholarship. All of that information needs to be vetted by me well in advance to doing any announcement or having anybody fill out any application. I can't make that any clearer. When it comes to giving money to an individual, the IRS is even more persnickety. They really are interested in, who we're writing checks to. So we have to make sure that those applications and all that process will pass muster with the IRS. So before you do anything, please, even offline, send me an email and let's review that before we go down this path. We are in the process of developing, and it's actually based on some work that was done at Ohio State on recruitment scholarships, to basically standardize the recruitment scholarship process and run it through our online portal that handles all of our scholarships. This is to standardize that process. We're all kind of in that same boat, every chapter, when it comes to recruitment. It's pretty straightforward application. Ohio State did a nice job of putting together all of the materials. And then also making it ease of use and putting it online so that all that information is gathered. It's not going to be operated or run by me at all. Simply, we're going to put it on our platform and system as an ongoing service to the chapters so that they can use those to help with that process. So I know Tom Pennington, and I don't know if he's on the call. He's out traveling in Kansas, so I don't know if he made the call. But I do know that the staff on the fraternity is a big proponent of recruitment scholarships as a way to gather names of people that would be interested in chapter in the STEM field and utilizing that from a recruitment process. Okay, so moving on to the last page of the, I think we're on 4. Yep, moving on to page 5. Now we're getting into the financial, and this is where I need as much detail as possible, either in an Excel spreadsheet, a Word document, what have you. Create a budget and show us, the income and the expense. So if you're doing a larger philanthropic event, and you are co-sponsoring with Phi Sigma Rho, and they're putting in, $500, and the chapters could put in $500, and you've got some other sponsorship, and in the grant, you're looking for a grant for $1,000. That type of information we need to know. Who else is putting in funding? A lot of your programs will be pure expense only side, where the only income is from the grant. But if you do have any income, please show that, and then a detailed budget on what the program is going to cost. Again, PDF only in this area, under here, we can also add more details of other funding support if you're getting anything from the alumni, that type of thing. One thing I do want to point out on page 4 that does need to be added under to describe the program of pertinent information. If you are purchasing equipment, if you are purchasing anything like that, this is where you are going to put that detail in. So, a lot of the chapters do a very good job of doing this, but they itemize. They go through their research through Amazon or eBay or whatever online sources that they're using to source their products, and they are able to provide model numbers and information and what the price point would be for those items. Don't forget, of course, that there is tax. So, and that tax is reimbursable. So, if we're buying a computer, and you're going to have to pay shipping and tax, that's, make sure you include that because that is fundable within the program. So back here to the financial information and the details. And then the last thing is to complete it. And basically, this is just you signing this form saying that you agree to these points, that you're going to use the money as you say you're going to do. If you don't do it as you say, you're going to return it. Sign title, date, and time. So pretty straightforward application process. We've tried to make this as simple as possible, putting this online. What will then happen is that once you do that, you'll be taken to a form that looks like this. Okay, you cannot complete this form until the program is over. This is the grant reimbursement request form. So in this part of this form will already be pre-populated based on your input into the previous form. Again, save your progress, click save, resume later. Make sure you remember your password. I did have some guys email me over the past year and say, I forgot how to log in with my password. So make sure you remember your password. So once you apply with this grant and you hit enter, you hit save and submit, I get an email on my end that says that you have submitted a grant application. I'll review that grant application and I will reply back to the grant coordinator with my approval or with more questions or commentary. And once I send an email that says your grant is approved, you can proceed. It's very, very important. And again, this is also per IRS guidelines. You cannot go buying stuff or committing funding without our approval of that grant. Keep in mind, until you receive that approval, the grant you have not you do not have money. Okay, so if you keep that in mind, that you're not going to there's nothing certain in life, and until you get that approval, you certainly do not have that funding available. Okay, so you get the email from me. You've been approved. You go out and you purchase the equipment, or you put on the program, or you hire the speaker, whatever you need to do. And once that's all completed, it's time to ask for your money for the reimbursement. And so you log in here. You'll be able to see resume from a previously saved form. Generally speaking, from the time that I get the application in my email basket, it's going to take me no more than 3 to 4 days to review it and get a response back to the chapters with an approval. So expect at least a 3 to 4 business day review process for me with some sort of response back for me within 3 to 4 days. Sorry, that was somebody just asked that question, so I was sharing that information. Okay, I think as you can see here, it says do not make any purchase or financial obligations. We've already covered that. Some of this information will be pre-populated, but basic, grant application name, this should match exactly what you put on form number 1. A lot of times I'll refer to this as form 1 and form 2. Chapter date, mailing address, name of the chapter treasurer, and this is important because this is who we're going to be working with if there's any issues with our EFT process. Bank information, the bank name, so this would be Chase Bank or Wells Fargo or whatever bank you are using. The name on the bank account, what is the name on the top of the statements? Is it Triangle Inc.? Is it Triangle Fraternity Illinois chapter? That's very important. That's where 90% of our hiccups happen on EFTs, is when the name does not match. So if we have already been doing EFTs with you, we're pretty good to go because that's information saved in our system. But if we have not done an EFT to your chapter, this is important to have this information, and we may have a hiccup, and we'll work through that. Chapter bank account number and routing number. As you can see, we got this nifty little routing and account on where to find that information. We also would like to have a voided copy of it uploaded as a PDF. And then just authorizing us to initiate the credit entry into the account. So basically, we're doing this all via EFT directly to the chapter's bank account. So that's page 1. Page 2, here's the expense details, and you can keep adding additional expenses. But first line, big computer, $1,000. Click add additional, big monitor, $500. So you can keep adding those items. Pretty straightforward. The nice thing about this too is that, as you can see here, as I enter this will automatically tally up what is to be reimbursed. So you'll see that right here, on what is to be reimbursed. We do need copies, again, PDF, of all of your expenses. Ideally, we would like this in one PDF document, but if you need to attach multiple, I understand. But if I don't have a receipt for each of these expenses somewhere, I cannot pay that expense. So that's very, very important, that you have the receipts to correlate with your requested reimbursement. And then finally, on page 3, you will see just a little bit of reflection on the grant, on this program. Would you conduct it again? How would you enhance the program if additional funding was available? How did this benefit everybody? Did this impact campus or surrounding community? So this is a philanthropy event. Should put some information in here, or if you're doing an e-week project or speaker, put that in there. And then we'd like to publicize all the good work the chapters are doing, whether it's through the website or through donor communication directly to all the donors that made these funds available, or putting in the review. So please, give us some good high quality photos. These do not have to be PDFs. These should be good JPEGs or other versions of good quality pictures that we can use. Don't need to send us 20 or 40, just 2 or 3, especially of renovation projects to study rooms and things like that. Definitely of like community service projects. If you're doing something with FIRST Robotics, it would be great to have a picture of the brothers working with the team, and those types of things. Those are great. We'd love to share that with the donors that provide the funding for the chapter, and then click submit. That then comes to me, and I review it. It takes me 3 to 5 business days to review that, making sure all the documentation's in order. And then it takes at least another 2 to 3 business weeks, 5-day weeks, to process the funds, transition the funds from our endowment over and pay it in our pay cycle. So just keep that in mind. We try to do it as quickly as possible. We try to do it. Our goal is to get it done within 2 weeks of actual receipt in my inbox. But please give us at least 3, possibly 4 weeks to process it. When it is processed and the EFT is initiated, Tina Stidham with the headquarters will send an email to that treasurer that is identified here on page 1. We'll send an email to them telling them that the EFT was in process, and from there it takes 3 business days. Once that email is initiated, if you don't see the transfer in your bank account within 3 to 4 days, please reach out to her and so that she can problem solve that. Again, sometimes there's a hang up if it's the first time we've transferred money with a matching of the name on the account, or we may have gotten a routing number or something like that incorrect. So that's the process on the reimbursement side of things. So I'm going to move right along, and as you can see, we've covered the fundable items. We reviewed the application process, and then the important CEF dates. May 30th is the absolute deadline. So our process is this is on an ongoing basis, and so as you have programs that have surfaced, you can submit those at any point through the school year, up until May 30th. On June 1st, the online form will go away. It actually shuts off, and you will not be able to do any more grant writing after that for that school year. The reason is we have to close our books on June 30th. We have reports and tax forms and things like that we have to complete, and it takes us a good amount of time to pull all that information together. So that's why we have to cut the process off on May 30th, and then the absolute deadline to request a reimbursement is June 15th. So you can submit for example, an application to buy a study room computer printer setup on May 30th, and I approve it. You have until the 15th to submit form number 2 for the reimbursement to receive those funds. The next thing I wanted to cover, and I wanted to cover it actually a little bit earlier, but is talking about utilizing your CEF for other programs. So I've talked about FIRST Robotics, and I've talked about recruitment scholarships. I talked about study room upgrades. Another area that the CEFs are used for are the attendance at the national events. This year, we have LTW coming up in January, and we have a couple of different tracks, and these are rough numbers. These are estimates based on last year's numbers. These are subject to change. I'm only providing this for budgeting purposes so that everybody has these numbers available so that they can at least plug them into their budget in looking at how to utilize their funds. Keep in mind, if you want to attend membership education, the full price of that program is over $300. The chapter will be responsible, or you or the attendee, for the full registration unless they use their CEF portion, which is 80% of that number, so $260. Every chapter has that option to not use their chapter endowment fund to attend an educational event. I don't think that's rather smart, and I would not encourage it. I think that there's a lot of valuable information at those programs that help benefit the individual and benefit the chapter. So I strongly encourage you to maximize your participation in the programs as you can based on how much money is available in your grant program. So this is the time in September to be thinking through your school year and putting together how you would like to use your CEF funds and how many people you would like to send to these programs. So membership education form, finance track, development, marketing, and sales track. There's also regional events that will be announced. So there's funding. You can use your CEF to attend that. I know that Michigan Tech used a large amount of money not that large, but a good amount of money to send basically their entire chapter to Michigan for the Catalyst last academic year, help cover their transportation and housing. So that's an example of attending an event and utilizing your CEF. UIFI, Undergraduate Interfraternity Institute, is a fantastic program put on by the North American Interfraternity Council. It's held during the summer, and certainly you can use your Chapter Endowment Fund to send members of your chapter to that program. I have seen those that have attended that program come back with a fire in their belly to do some good. And so it's a good investment by the chapter and a young leader that you're looking at to make some positive change in the chapter. So think about that. And keep in mind that these numbers are per person. So based on how much money you have available, you can send multiple people to these different tracks and programs. This school year is not a SCOBY year. That falls into next academic year for us and our financial planning purposes. So that's why that is not on here for this year, but it will be on when we do this. Well, it already happened, but it'll be in for next year. Also, think about recruitment scholarships, chapter-based leadership training. Take the chapter to a high ropes course. Talk to Ariel or Tom about on-site programming that would be specific to your chapter and your needs. Think about utilizing outside resources to do a chapter-based programming. First Robotics and Philanthropy. We've got a new partnership with First Robotics. Funding here is available, through your CEF for that, as well as philanthropic activities. And in classifying philanthropic activities too, I'd say, programs that benefit the entire Greek community or the entire university. I know Marquette is talking about bringing in, has done it in the past. They brought in a sexual assault speaker for the entire campus, and they're also talking about bringing in another speaker this year. We've done, a lot of the campuses have e-week or engineering week. What a great opportunity to sponsor something in connection with that, whether it's a speaker or a program, and really get the word out about Triangle among your target market, and also build tremendous goodwill with the School of Engineering, College of Engineering, the dean and the staff and the faculty. As we're all aware, fraternities are not necessarily, um, um, well liked in the academic world, and in showing that Triangle is a little bit different and very serious about academics and very serious about engineering and STEM, to those key people on your campus will go a long way. So a lot to think about as far as these programs. But as you're building your budget, please make sure that you are budgeting now to send people to LTW. These programs are extremely valuable. And I've seen a direct correlation with chapters that send multiple people to this program in their success versus chapters that send one or none and they struggle. So I'm just trying to guide you in the right direction. And so certainly as you're looking at your funds available, please consider that. I talked about the application website. Here are the two locations that you can find to use the website. This one will take you right to the application, and then you can also access it on the Triangle Education Foundation website. And just to show you real quickly, that website and some of the content there that's available. Excuse me. Oh, it's right here. If you go to this Chapter Endowment Funds, some information, again, duplication, but some information about Chapter Endowment Funds. Down here, you will see the instructions. Click here for the instructions to complete your CEF online, which will take you to a sheet that looks like this. That, again, contains that link. Talks about the forms, talks about saving, and walks you through that. This is available on the website. In addition, on the website are two other forms. One is how to use your Chapter Endowment Fund money, talking about some of the automatically applied to the national programs, talk about some of the other things, other ways to use your funds that are available, as well as the Triangle Education Foundation Chapter Endowment Fund program. Again, just some information, FAQs on how it's used and that type of thing that's available online. So that's available right here on our website, or you can use the direct link that I've supplied in this webinar. Okay, and then finally, I'm sure everybody's looking to know how much, how big their funds are and what's available. So again, this is available. It'll be also sent out to chapter officers. Everybody at the national headquarters is aware of this, so we can always answer those questions. We have a policy of funding, what's called funding on a 12-quarter rolling average. So funding is, as we're growing the funds, it will continue to grow, and provide funding for different programs. So most every chapter has at least $1,000. There's a couple that are a little bit below that because of their youthfulness in the fund. But otherwise, everybody should have at least 1,000. So that should cover at least 2 or 3 people to attend LTW in the fall or in the January, and still provide a little bit of money left over to do something else. So that's the funding that's available. And again, this webinar will be uploaded onto YouTube, so that people will have this, and this information will also be supplied out. And then finally, is there any questions or anything I didn't cover in the program? Okay. Is everybody still there? Everybody awake? Okay. Well, I'm not seeing anybody popping up with a question. Oh, there. Oh, Matthew says thank you. Scott, can you explain more about philanthropy? Okay. So Pete asked about Pete Setta with Ohio State asked a little bit about philanthropy, and so basically, we're talking about something here that's 100% fundable through the IRS, and that is the chapter's participation in in a charitable cause, a C3, what have you. So, and this can take the form of a couple of different things. This can be participation in a philanthropic event like Dance Marathon. It could be engaged in the actual participation of a philanthropic event, such as you're going to participate in Habitat for Humanity, or you're going to build wheelchair ramps, and so this is going to cover the cost of that participation. It could be purchasing supplies and wood and things like that to produce the actual wheelchair ramps. It could be funding of direct charitable gifts, first robotic teams, things along those lines. So those are some examples of philanthropy, but generally we do try to stay away from fundraisers. So like if you just want seed money because you're going to sell candy bars and you want us to buy the candy bars, that's probably not the most efficient way or something that we're going to encourage. But we will participate in other fundraising events. So hopefully that answers all of that relative to that. Next question. Let's see here. Just quick, Gregory asked, just to verify, how long would you expect a typical application would take? Hitting the submit button, correctly formatted. As I said earlier, expect 2 to 3 work days. There are days that it's going to be less than a couple hours. If I'm sitting here at my desk and looking at the email and I have the time, or it could be I could be traveling and I just don't have the time on the road and I need to get back to my desk and look at it. So I don't want to make promises I can't deliver, but I do try to do it as quickly as possible. I got one in from Marquette. I think it came in last night or this morning, and I hope after this webinar to actually review it and submit it, approve it, or at least by tomorrow morning. So. Okay, Brian Jarman, thanks for a good much for preview. This is recorded and it will be handed off to Ariel to be put into our YouTube account, I believe, and I will find out more about how to access it that way. But I believe it's in the YouTube, and which is also a link on the website, the triangle.org website. John Pritchard asks, can you describe how a chapter would participate with FIRST Robotics, especially if they don't have a lot of money to fund an event, but would like to get started? Okay, that's a whole nother webinar, John. That's a great question. I will give a very quick response, but I think that warrants a whole nother webinar talking about FIRST Robotics and how we can participate. First and foremost, FIRST Robotics needs people. They need bodies. That is what makes it a great relationship for Triangle. They need that more than they need money. They are very lucky, and they've got some very strong corporate citizens out there that are providing funding for it. Now, I'm not saying that they won't turn funding away, but they really need people. So a chapter has an opportunity to participate with a team. The other beautiful thing about FIRST Robotics is it exists or could exist anywhere. It's not like other charities where you either have to physically go somewhere else on a mission trip or something like that. If there is some sort of education environment around you, grade school, middle school, high school, you can get FIRST Robotics going at some level. Keeping in mind there are 4 different programs. that First Robotics offers. They offer 2 different Lego competitions. The first one starting at the kindergarten level. They offer, and then the other moving up to like 3rd grade, and then the 4th grade through 6th grade is another Lego competition. They have like a junior level robotics program that could go through high school, and then they've got the major First Robotics competition, First Robotics. So there are programs at all levels. And so the number one way to get involved is to volunteer, is to figure out, working through the headquarters on where our team's available and how they can serve as mentors. It could be working directly with a team um, on an ongoing basis as a mentor, because these teams need people to mentor them, people that have some sort of STEM background. And it's amazing. It takes people from, you got electronics, mechanical, computer, you name it, are engaged in this process. So they need the different skill sets and the mentoring of these young people. At the chapter level, or I'm sorry, at the individual team level. But then there's also these competitions that are very volunteer driven and volunteer oriented. So even if it's not in a daily basis or an ongoing basis with a team, you can be working on a volunteer basis with the state or regional events, competitions that happen throughout the course of the year. So whether it's helping park cars or working in the hospitality room or setting up or tearing down, plenty of opportunity there as well. The other beautiful thing, this isn't an undergraduate only event. This is something that an undergraduate or an alumnus can be part of. They can be part of it together in showing the triangle colors. As far as financing, our main focus is at the local level and the teams. Each team requires some level of funding depending on which of those 4 programs they're involved in. Obviously, the top tier robotics team is quite expensive. The registration fee, the early registration fee for that, is $5,000. But most of those teams need much more than that to fund equipment, supplies, all those types of things, travel to the competitions. And so part of that, what those mentors do and what happens is those individuals help raise money help the chapter raise money for themselves to perpetuate the program. So not only can a Triangle chapter help provide some funding, they can raise money locally on the campus and donate it to the chapter or to the team. I'm sorry. They can use CEF money, or we'll have some first robotic block grants that are going to be available here shortly to chapters to help underwrite those programs. And provide some funding. So number one resource needed for First Robotics is the human resource. Number 2 is funding, and that is available and can be used via CEF or the national First Robotics grant that we've received from the Callard Foundation, as well as doing local fundraising on the campus. So hopefully that covered in a very quick sketch First Robotics. A lot more information needs to come out about it, and we're pretty excited about that entire program. A follow-up question from Gregory. After I approve it, how long would you expect until the money is transferred and able to use? Now, okay, so that's a good question, Gregory. We do not transfer the money until after all the expenses have been or purchases have been completed. So keep in mind, step 1, application process. You cannot buy or purchase anything until I say that application is approved. So you submit that. I promise to get a response back within 3 business days. I give you a response. It's approved, good to go. The chapter then has to go out and make the purchases or commit their funds and get the things done. Once that is completed, so for example, you are buying new hardware for your study room, you have to go out, purchase those items, collect your receipts. Once all those purchases are completed, you scan those, you fill out form number 2, you submit it, I review it. If everything looks good, we're asking for 2 to 3 business weeks to complete the transfer. So that's a process. We do not front money up front, because sometimes these programs go by the wayside and they don't actually happen. One other thing I forgot to mention, this is very, very important, everybody. Please, if you haven't picked up anything else, the grant process. You do not have to go through the grant process for any of those programs put on by the National Fraternity. So these programs here, LTW, Membership Ed, Finance Development, you do not have to bother putting an application in. All you have to say is, we want to use the money for that. We already have reviewed the program and it's legally, fundable and all that. All you have to do is use the money. You do not have to fill out any application process. You do have to fill it out for UIFI or any of these other programs, anything else outside of this. But if you are attending a national program, a leadership program, that could be the Leadership Training Weekend or SCOBY, you do not have to submit a grant application. So that should save everybody some, but you need to plan for it and make sure it's in your budget. So don't spend all your money in October and then want to send 4 guys in January. Make sure that you've got that money allocated so you can send your guys in January to the program. And looks like I've answered all the questions. I don't see any more questions popping up. If there's no more questions, I will just leave you with this here. We are a resource to help you either raise more money for your CEF, or if there's somebody on here that doesn't have one, we will help you start one. And then we also, the entire staff, can help you and guide you with any questions related to utilizing these funds. So whether it's myself, Amy Buckheit, or Aaron Gerson, our emails are here. They're pretty simple. First initial, full last name, triangle.org. Or you can reach us at 317-837-9641, and our website is triangleef.org. So please reach out to us on any questions or anything that we didn't cover. We're happy to do that for you. So last call for questions. If not, I think that we're all done. I really appreciate your time in joining us. We've had 18 people log in, and that's fantastic. And I really appreciate that. And I look forward to helping you guys all achieve success at your local chapter. Everybody have a good night. I got to figure out how to end this.